She quickly does her makeup inside the airplane restroom, and upon stepping out, without uttering a single word, she walks straight toward the man she fell in love with at first sight to passionately deliver a deep kiss. Roy does not push her away, merely casting a quick glance at the cockpit, where the door happens to be wide open. After taking her seat, June also spots this highly bizarre sight, mistakenly assuming that the plane is simply preparing to make its descent. To her absolute shock, Roy nonchalantly tells her that he shot and unalived the pilot, whose gun then accidentally discharged and unalived the co-pilot. And to top it all off, every other soul on this aircraft has also been completely wiped out by his own hands. Hearing this mind-blowing confession, June suddenly cannot control her laughter and bursts right out laughing. Roy plays along perfectly, sharing the laugh right alongside her, while casually mentioning that he is going to head up front to get the situation under control. Left completely clueless about what is actually going on, June just sits there, watching Roy stroll casually right into the cockpit. However, before she even has a split second to buckle her own seatbelt, the plane abruptly drops the emergency oxygen masks, and immediately following that, the lifeless bodies of the passengers come tumbling right out of their seats. Staring at the horrifying nightmare unfolding right before her eyes, June is scared completely out of her wits and screams at the top of her lungs. Afterward, she dashes frantically into the cockpit, only to discover that Roy is actively piloting the aircraft all by himself. Roy tells her to sit tight and maintain her composure, noting that he is not exactly well trained when it comes to pulling off an emergency crash landing.
That's a truck! Yep. That's a truck! Yep. That's a
Following this forced emergency landing, the two of them miraculously walk away from the wreckage completely unscathed. After putting down the flight's black box, Roy hands June a tiny bottle of liquor to help take the edge off her anxiety, strictly instructing her that no matter who she encounters down the line, she must absolutely claim she does not know him, as that is the only way to keep her own life intact. June is left in a state of total bewilderment over everything that just transpires, and without giving her any actual time to process reality, she instantly passes out from a hidden sedative. By the time she opens her eyes and wakes up again, June finds herself lying safely in her very own bed at home. She initially writes the entire thing off as a wild dream, until she notices a handwritten note left behind by Roy, sitting right in front of her, while the television is simultaneously broadcasting breaking news about yesterday's horrific plane crash. Upon seeing the news report, June's solitary thought is a wave of pure relief that she is still among the living. Little does she realize that the very moment she made contact with Roy, her personal freedom has already been completely stripped away. Remaining entirely oblivious to her predicament, June goes to a bridal boutique to check in on her sister April, whose wedding is just a few short days away, determined not to let any outside chaos disrupt the celebration. But before the sisters can even exchange more than a few words, a random person walks into the shop and requests that June step outside to move her vehicle. When June steps outside to take a look, she is greeted by the sight of at least a dozen burly men completely surrounding her. The moment she catches sight of them, flashing their official badges, June does not dare to put up a fight, stepping right into their vehicle exactly as instructed. An agent named Fitzgerald introduces himself as part of the FBI, stating that he knows for a fact she was on the exact same flight as Roy yesterday, demanding that she surrender Roy's current location. Regardless of whether June admits to it or denies it, the simple reality of her interacting with Roy means that she is now entirely trapped in a situation where she no longer controls her own fate. Halfway through the journey, Fitzgerald instructs his team to transfer June to another vehicle under the pretext of providing witness protection, which in reality is nothing short of total house arrest. Just like that, a convoy of tactical vehicles drives in a straight line toward the FBI headquarters, completely unaware that these cars will never actually reach their final destination. Suddenly, a piercing gunshot rings through the air, and the federal agent sitting right in front of June is instantly shot and unalived. Following the agent jumping out, June is left as the only person remaining inside the vehicle. To avoid being smashed into a total meat patty, she has no choice but to forcefully take over the steering wheel. But since her arms cannot reach the brakes, she can only struggle to control the vehicle as it speeds wildly all the way down the road. Hearing sirens blaring from behind at this moment, she assumes it is a speedy rescue by the police. But the moment she turns her head, that motorcycle has already soared over her head and plunged straight into the pool. Confronted with such an eccentric reunion, June naturally goes into a bit of a panic. Seeing her completely overwhelmed, Roy does not even bother explaining, as his top priority is neutralizing the hostiles hot on their tail. Even after getting thrown off, Roy remains completely unfazed, and he even goes as far as taking a pair of sunglasses from a kid in the car. Next, he climbs onto the car roof, looking at June beside him, and with a simple, effortless leap, he jumps straight onto the roof of June's vehicle. He then proceeds to scale the roof of the car, looks over at June driving right next to him, and with a single, effortless leap, lands perfectly onto the roof of June's runaway vehicle. Realizing this is a losing battle, because June keeps erratically swerving the steering wheel back and forth, making it impossible for him to get a clean shot, Roy shouts at June to unlock and open the car door immediately. Roy smoothly glides right into the driver's seat to take over the wheel, smashing through heavy roadblocks while simultaneously returning fire to eliminate targets, though the sheer intensity of the enemy's heavy machine gun fire still manages to suppress them due to their own lack of heavy firepower. After executing a sharp drift to bring the car to a sudden halt, Roy wastes no time pulling June down to the ground for cover. Roy pops open the vehicle's trunk to retrieve 2 high-powered FBI weapons, and while casually maintaining a conversation with June, he effortlessly snipes and dispatches the 2 pursuers hovering right above their heads. In June's bewildered eyes, he operates exactly like a literal Grim Reaper, continuously collecting souls with absolute ease, yet he looks so incredibly stunning and handsome doing it that she finds herself completely unable to articulate her current emotions. Noticing how profoundly terrified she is, Roy instructs her to stay exactly where she is, while he takes his weapon to go sweep and eliminate the remaining low-level goons. Little does he know, taking advantage of this exact distraction, June breaks into a light jog and flees the scene entirely. It isn't until she makes it all the way to a highly crowded downtown district that she suddenly realizes she is still clutching the loaded handgun Roy handed her earlier. Overwhelmed with absolute dread, June quickly dumps the firearm straight into a nearby trash bin. Afterward, she rushes straight toward a fire department, successfully tracking down her ex-boyfriend, Rodney. Having just survived a literal war zone between the FBI and Roy, June does not dare to contact local law enforcement, leaving her with 0 options but to turn to Rodney for protection. Earlier that day, June is checking in for her boarding pass at the airport as usual, and while heading to the departure lounge, she bumps into Roy, whose striking good looks instantly capture her heart. While going through security clearance, she keeps tracking Roy's every move. With her heart pounding furiously, June runs right into Roy yet again. This second collision sends June over the moon, as not only do they cross paths again, but Roy even tells her that they are actually booked on the exact same flight. Shortly after, they both board the same airplane together. What follows next is the total, mind-bending plane crash that leaves her completely bewildered the entire time. After listening to June recount this absolutely wild adventure, Rodney genuinely believes she might have a screw loose, considering nobody in their right mind would ever buy a story like this. Right in the middle of their conversation, Roy casually strolls straight into the restaurant and sits down right next to them without a single care in the world. A panicked June quickly whispers under her breath that this is the exact man she was talking about. But staring at the handsome Roy, Rodney still refuses to believe a single word coming out of June's mouth. Left with no choice, to validate June's words on the spot, Roy instantly whips out a pair of handcuffs and takes June hostage. Witnessing Roy actually fire his weapon, Rodney completely chickens out, losing all idea of how to handle the situation, and leaving him with no choice but to watch helplessly as Roy forcefully drags June away. Meanwhile, the entire sequence of events is captured crystal clear by the security cameras. The moment they exit the restaurant, Roy throws June straight into the car. Spotting Rodney chasing after them outside, Roy opens fire and shoots at him without a moment of hesitation. Roy intentionally aims this shot to steer clear of Rodney's vital arteries and bones, inflicting nothing more than a superficial flesh wound, though it is certainly enough for Rodney to claim a medal for bravery. Afterward, Roy wastes absolutely no time, quickly speeding away from the scene with June in tow. Along the way, he explains to June that staging this kidnapping directly under the security cameras is entirely intentional, ensuring she is framed as a completely innocent victim as much as possible. Furthermore, while stopping at a gas station, the television news reports that Rodney's injuries are entirely non-life-threatening. Seeing that the outcome aligns perfectly with exactly what Roy promised, June begins to believe that Roy is, at the very least, one of the good guys. In reality, the root cause behind this entire chaotic mess boils down to a single, high-tech battery. Roy reveals that a tiny gadget like this is capable of powering an entire town, which is exactly why his agency deployed him to protect its brilliant inventor and secure the asset. Little did anyone expect that once the mission is successful, Fitzgerald completely flips sides, plotting to unalive Roy while attempting to sell both the inventor and the battery off to black market arms dealers. Forced into a corner, he could only flee with both the individual and the battery. This precise action leads the agency to brand him an official defector, prompting a massive swarm of FBI agents to launch a full-scale manhunt against him. As of now, the battery's inventor, Simon, has been safely hidden away by him. As for exactly how this entire operation winds up entangling a completely unrelated civilian like June, Roy offers no further explanation for the time being, simply reassuring her that he will get her back to her normal life. The following day, Roy brings June over to an abandoned factory complex located in Brooklyn. Simon is originally supposed to be hiding deep inside this very building, but the moment they step indoors to check, the man is already nowhere to be found. It turns out Simon feels unsafe staying put, choosing to pack up and leave ahead of schedule. Spotting the walls covered entirely in complex mathematical formulas, Roy hands his firearm over to June before heading deeper inside to see if he can dig up any clues. Before long, by analyzing the unique patterns folded onto a shipping container, he successfully deciphers the brand new location left behind by Simon. Meanwhile, June, who is outside absent-mindedly playing around with the handgun all by herself, remains completely oblivious to the fact that a small army of hostiles has already infiltrated the warehouse. After blowing open a shipping container, Roy immediately begins prepping a fresh batch of weaponry. These armed intruders are all sent by the notorious arms dealer Antonio, operating under strict orders to seize the powerful battery at all costs. Having said that, he tasks June with holding on to the spare ammunition magazines, telling her that all she needs to do is track his exact footsteps. Fortunately for her, she manages to avoid getting struck by any stray bullets. Capitalizing on a brief window, right after the enemy finishes unloading a massive volley of fire, Roy once again activates full combat god mode, popping up to unleash a round of deadly precision shooting. Every single hitman who dares to show their face gets completely taken out by his lethal accuracy. Burning through his ammunition in record time, Roy rapidly reloads his weapon, while turning to tell June that they cannot afford to get bogged down in a prolonged firefight, making it imperative that they escape immediately. Yet, right in the middle of making their tactical retreat, Roy still concludes that heading out in person to sweep the area clean would be far safer. So he leaves June with a weapon before turning around and walking right out. Hearing the spectacular symphony of gunfire echoing from outside, June finds herself completely unable to contain her curiosity, itching to experience exactly what firing a weapon feels like. For his own safety, Roy quickly pulls out a vial of liquid medicine for June and tells her that the enemy will deploy toxic gas, meaning she needs to drink the antidote ahead of time. True to his signature playbook, the moment he realizes she is going to be a liability, he uses the classic move of drugging her to knock her completely unconscious. A completely groggy June catches sight of the armed militants storming inside, while also spotting Roy hanging suspended in midair. But in the blink of an eye, Roy effortlessly breaks free from his restraints. Soon after, she finds herself being half-consciously ushered right onto an airplane. After skydiving out of it, they somehow end up aboard a speedboat through some unknown series of events. By the time she regains full consciousness, she finds herself rocking a bikini, stranded right on the edge of a breathtakingly azure coastline. How they managed to arrive at this destination is not really the point, as the real burning question is how she got changed into this outfit. Roy states bluntly that he changed her clothes with his eyes completely shut. In reality, this is nothing short of a literal trap question, because if he claims he didn't look, it implies June lacks sex appeal and charm. But if he admits he did look, it brands Roy a total creep who takes advantage of a vulnerable girl. Too bad June's punches carry absolutely zero power. Realizing she stands zero chance of physically overpowering him, she throws her regular clothes back on, determined to storm off and leave this island all on her own. Along the way, her phone suddenly rings, and due to a terrible signal, an anxious June wanders around searching for bars, completely unaware that she has walked right up to the edge of the coastline. Most critically, her coordinates have now been fully compromised right in front of the arms dealer Antonio. Given how tiny this island actually is, Roy isn't worried in the slightest about her running away, knowing damn well that June will be forced to turn right back around within a matter of minutes. Unfortunately, this time around, they are denied any opportunity to engage in playful banter, as the arms dealer's automated combat drones have already arrived right above their heads. Faced with a drone launching indiscriminate bombardments, Roy has no trick up his sleeve either, forcing him to grab June and flee into a small jungle. Since he had a way to get onto this island, he naturally possesses a method to escape it. To guarantee a seamless evacuation, Roy pulls his signature move once more and knocks June unconscious. When she finally opens her eyes to consciousness once more, she is already riding aboard a moving passenger train, and Simon, the brilliant scientist who manufactures the high-tech battery, is currently located right at the front of the train. The message he left behind in the shipping container was precisely to have Roy meet up with him right here. Meanwhile, June, who wanders out for a stroll, runs into a hitman, mistakenly assuming that this individual is actually Simon. It isn't until she spots the note Roy left behind on the sole of her shoe that she finally realizes she has mistaken his identity. To avoid unaliving in a horribly ugly way, June gets up and immediately leaves the dining car, navigating her way all the way to the kitchen at the very back. With absolutely nowhere left to run, the only living soul around is instantly sent to the afterlife by a single plunge of the hitman's blade. Right as they are getting tangled up in a struggle, Roy arrives here as well, bringing Simon along with him. This hitman is indeed exceptionally skilled, causing Roy to suffer a devastating blow during their very first clash. In their second exchange, Roy is still fated to end up getting totally beaten up. Watching Roy get violently thrashed, June is suddenly possessed by a Charlie's Angel, kicking off a lethal counteroffensive. This unexpected maneuver draws blood from the assassin instantly. Seeing that he still intends to fight back, a resurrected Roy delivers a powerful kick, sending the hitman flying right out the window. Afterward, Roy arranges for June to stay at a hotel. June originally plans to take this opportunity to go on a date with Roy, little expecting that he is already dressed to the nines in a sharp suit and preparing to head out the door. Driven by curiosity, June follows Roy out of the hotel, wanting to see exactly who on earth he is going to meet. Before long, inside a narrow alleyway, she witnesses Roy meeting up with a tall and striking beauty. Of course, Roy is well aware of the fact that June is actively tailing him. He says some belittling words about June right in front of Naomi, and subsequently, utilizing Naomi's earpiece, he engages in a direct dialogue with the arms dealer Antonio. The two of them lock down a designated transaction location. With both the battery and the inventor currently in Roy's hands, selling them off as a package deal is the only wise choice. Hearing this shocking conversation, June's entire worldview instantly shatters into pieces, as she has always firmly believed Roy to be an upright and honorable man. Right in the middle of her existential crisis, an FBI vehicle pulls up directly in front of her. CIA Director George directly meets with June, telling her that her encounter with Roy at the airport back then was entirely a deliberate setup. During their very first run-in, Roy slipped the battery right into June's suitcase, with the sole purpose of having her unwittingly help him pass through security clearance. Once they safely cleared the checkpoint, Roy bumped into her a second time, successfully retrieving the battery once again. Because Roy is branded a defector by the FBI, meaning security cameras are locked tightly onto his every move, having a random passerby carry the battery through security clearance is the absolute safest method. George states that in Roy's eyes, June is nothing more than a mere tool to be exploited. Now that she has witnessed firsthand Roy's intention to sell off the battery, as long as she cooperates with the FBI to apprehend Roy, she will be fully permitted to return to her normal life. Under the FBI's combined threats and inducements, June heads back and waits continuously for Roy to return. To her complete surprise, the moment he steps into the room, Roy takes the initiative to pull the battery right out. At this point, June confesses to having tracked Roy's movements and admits that she is fully aware of his transaction scheme with the arms dealer. Roy appears completely unfazed by this revelation, since, after all, everything plays out entirely within his expectations. Before long, the FBI kicks down the door and storms inside, hoping to catch him red-handed with both the suspect and the stolen goods. Little does anyone expect that within a matter of mere seconds, both the battery and Roy vanish entirely without a trace. Thanks to June's compliance, however, Simon is still successfully captured alive by law enforcement. Meanwhile, outside, Roy himself hasn't managed to flee very far, with helicopters tracking his location from the sky above, while an endless swarm of police officers closes in to surround him from below. Ultimately, Roy is cornered onto a rooftop, and amidst a heavy volley of concentrated gunfire, he leaps straight into the moat, vanishing from sight entirely. True to his prior promise, George ensures June is completely cleared of any involvement in the case, meaning the ongoing manhunt for Roy no longer has anything to do with her. However, having returned to her ordinary life, June finds herself constantly replaying everything that transpired over the past few days. Then one night, she experiences a sudden epiphany, realizing that Roy intentionally allowed her to tail him so she would seamlessly cooperate with the FBI, thereby providing her with the perfect leverage to sell Roy out in exchange for regaining her freedom. Having fully pieced this together, June contacts Antonio, claiming that she has the exact battery they are looking for in her possession. Of course, she doesn't actually have a single thing in her hands, as June simply wants to get herself captured, so she can once again wait for Roy to pull off a heroic rescue of his damsel in distress. Meanwhile, during his transfer of Simon, Fitzgerald does not hesitate for a split second to eliminate his own colleagues. Although he failed to secure the battery itself, the brilliant inventor of the technology can still be traded for a massive fortune. Just like that, Antonio initiates a harsh interrogation of June, who delivered herself right to his doorstep. But June tells him flat out that she doesn't possess the battery at all, and her sole purpose for coming here is simply to track down the missing Roy. Shortly after, Fitzgerald arrives at Antonio's territory as well, claiming that he has stashed Simon away by the riverbank and requiring the other party to bring the cash along for a transaction by the water. Little do they know, Simon has actually been hidden inside his car trunk the entire time, and every single bit of this is unfolding under the direct surveillance of Roy from a rooftop high above. He initially intends to follow them to kill two birds with one stone, but spotting June unexpectedly throws a massive wrench into the mission's difficulty level. Before long, the hitman squad escorting June begins dropping dead one by one in complete silence. It isn't until a lone squad leader is left remaining that he finally notices his subordinates have all completely vanished into thin air. Roy refrains from delivering a lethal blow, opting instead to have the squad leader inform Antonio that the battery is currently in his hands. Having successfully pulled off the rescue operation, they blast through the main gates on a motorcycle. June is in charge of relaying coordinates based on the tracker, while Roy handles the high-speed pursuit of Fitzgerald, who is bound for the docks. Roy's motorcycle handling is currently at absolute peak performance, allowing him to navigate the arms dealer's blockades and ambushes with zero pressure. After flying clean over a flight of stairs, he doesn't slow down for a single fraction of a second, tearing straight through the gap between two moving trams. Upon catching wind of the news, Antonio immediately alerts Fitzgerald, instructing him to take care of Roy first before proceeding with the transaction. Consequently, the two vehicles instantly veer off into a tight alleyway. Before Roy can even catch up from behind, he runs straight into a massive stampede of cattle. Roy executes an instant U-turn, blending directly into the herd of bulls to shift positions. He veers his motorcycle right into a bull ring, leading the herd of cattle around for a lap as he settles completely into his own rhythm. Afterwards, Roy continues forward without shedding an ounce of speed, and just as he is on the verge of catching up to Fitzgerald right ahead, Antonio's henchmen are unexpectedly still launching a full-scale assault against him. Driven into a tight corner, Roy instructs June to initiate a counterattack. Fitzgerald up ahead has already arrived at his final destination, and immediately following that, Roy's motorcycle guns its engine onto the bridge. Spotting Fitzgerald's vehicle pulling straight into the pier, Roy leaps clean off the bike without hesitation. A prepped aircraft sits right in front of them, meaning a single second's delay will cause all their grueling efforts to go completely down the drain. But the moment Roy catches up, Fitzgerald instantly takes Simon hostage, demanding that Roy drop his handgun on the spot. Roy states that he can trade the battery in exchange for Simon, and the second the words leave his mouth, he tosses the asset straight to Fitzgerald. Following a sharp gunshot, the airplane engines roar to life, and Roy successfully takes a bullet to shield Simon from harm. As for Fitzgerald, who is currently escaping inside the departing aircraft, his grim fate has long been set in stone. That specific battery suffers from a severe design flaw, making Roy more than eager to get rid of it as early as possible. The severely injured Roy is urgently rushed to the hospital, and upon waking up, he catches sight of George, who has been waiting for him for a long time. George informs him that the entire situation has been thoroughly cleared up. Fitzgerald is officially deceased, and Simon has locked down a collaboration with the government along with a brand new laboratory, meaning Roy is essentially cleared of all suspicion. However, this doesn't imply that Roy has regained his absolute freedom, as what lies in store for him is a seemingly endless cycle of high-stakes missions. The moment George exits the hospital room, a nurse brings over a cup of medicine, which Roy gulps down only to realize it is actually a heavy sedative. And this particular nurse is none other than June herself. By the time he wakes up once again, he finds himself sitting inside a sports car located right on a beach. Right in the middle of his confusion, June comes running right over to him. Her message is crystal clear. Rather than passively selling his soul to work for the government, it is infinitely better to take the initiative and enjoy life by the sea.